Alright, welcome back. I'm going to tie a fly called the Missouri Caddis. What you see in the vise is a size 16 curved shank hook. This happens to be a scud emerger hook. You can use a Caddis hook. Either way is fine. I'm going to start my thread. I'm using 30 denier GSP, but I'm going to start that thread just up about a bodkin width or a half bodkin width behind the eye, and then I'll trim that out. And I'll bring this back forward. The first thing we need is kind of this little bubble effect. So in order to get that, we're going to use some Antron yarn. You can use EP fiber, you can use polypropylene yarn, anything that's going to kind of give you this nice shiny look. I had to separate that off camera, but you can see there's what I'm pulling from. So here's all the leftover, and this is what I've got. Very, very little. We don't need a lot. Let me trim this out. Okay. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put this right on top and draw that back so we don't have to have any extra trimmings. And you want to make sure that as we tie this back, it's not, you want to kind of keep it loose so you can kind of splay it around the sides of the hook like so, because we want to have a, like I was saying, like a bubble effect, similar to a sparkle pupa. And so we're just going to tie this down into the bend. Just kind of want to separate this out. This is not as difficult as the sparkle pupa where we totally encase the fly. Next, what we need is some orange dubbing. Now Wapsi has this life cycle dubbing that's called Caddis Orange, and so that's what I'm going to use. And you can wax your thread here if you like. And I meant to say that you can also use black thread. We're going to make the head black. I just prefer to use GSP for most things. I know that's not everybody's cup of tea, but I certainly love this thread. I use it everything from big classic salmon flies down to these little tiny ones. Okay, so get a turn or two around, we can twist it up. We're going to build a very slight taper coming forward. Just a touch more. We want to get this up to right about where we started our thread, but not quite. Just shy of that. This is a messy bug. It's meant to be messy. There we go. Perfect. I'm going to draw everything back and get it out of my way. And we can wrap back into that dubbing if we need to a little bit. Now what we want to do is we're going to fold this Antron yarn over, place it right on top. I'm just going to put 2 loose wraps in, so we have this big bubble, and we'll just gently pull until we have it just kind of off the back a little bit, so there's a little bit of a gap in there, as you can see. So you got something about like this. Tie this in coming forward with a couple of wraps, and then we're going to reverse the material and tie this in so that anything that gets cut can be hidden on the next steps. There we go, that's perfect. Next, what we need to do is put the antenna in. I know probably a lot of you are thinking, like, why are we putting the antenna in right here? Well, it's just what the pattern calls for. So what I've got here is some wood duck flank. You could use some dyed mallard flank, and we don't need much. So even down on a size 20 or 24, which is what these patterns are often recommended to use, or a size to tie on, I should say. You know, you're only using 2 or 3. And so to make this easy again, and you can leave these all splayed out kind of crazy and everything, it's just fine. I'm going to try to get my curvature for the most part matching the hook shank. So we'll just leave these way out back for the moment. We're going to do the same thing, put a couple of loose wraps in, and now we can pinch the one side, pinch the other, and just gently pull until our antenna are just past the bend of the hook, about like that. And we're going to do the same thing. Wrap forward to tie this in, fold it back to tie it off. Like that. And we can trim this out. Okay, perfect. Next we got to build the thorax, and then to do that I'm going to use some peacock herl. So on a size 16 like this, I'm going to use 3 peacock herl fibers. And I'm going to try to tie that in right at the point where I want it. Peacock herl doesn't particularly do well when you stroke it back like the other synthetic materials. And some other feathers for that matter. So at this point, I'm just going to give it a gentle twist. We probably really only need 2 fibers here, but I always like to add one more in case one pops on me, so I don't have to stop the fly and start over. So we're just going to twist that together, get it nice and bushy, and we're going to wrap just slightly back onto the dubbing, like so. That's going to splay out, or should help splay out, the antenna fibers. And we're just going to make a couple of turns here. And when we come back up front, we'll tie it off on top with a couple of passes. Make sure you don't have that sink down in front of your eye. And now I'll reverse that and do the same thing. Just tie it in going backwards, trying to capture all those little fibers and get all that material out of the way of the eye. Okay. And now what I'll do is I'm going to separate these, put some tension on the bobbin, and pop these one at a time. You can actually pop them usually 2 or 3 at a time, but I don't want to reshoot the video. Next, the head. I'm just going to use a black Sharpie. I'm going to color my GSP. And I want to add just a little bit of crazy glue to it. Very little. We don't need much. You can see how there's those beads on there are very, very tiny. This is called a wet whip. Uh-oh. We'll fix that. And you'll be able to color your head and glue it shut at the same time, while typically keeping all the glue out of your eye. And there you go. A Missouri caddis. Fairly simple. If you liked the video, always appreciate a thumbs up, like, subscribe, and always share. Come check us out over at flyvault.net. We're doing some cool stuff over there. We've designed it specifically for other fly tires, and it's just a different way to do social media. It costs a few bucks a month, but that's just to help us continue keeping it going. Covers operational costs. So other than that, happy tying, everybody. Take care, and I'll see you next time.